Welcome to the 3D Players podcast, where we explore personalization in healthcare through advancements in 3D technology. We'll talk to leaders championing more predictable and sustainable patient care. I'm Pieter Slagmolen, and I'm accompanied by my co-host Sebastian de Boot. Hey, Sebastian.
Hey, Peter.
Today, we're very excited to speak with Massimo Calafiore. Massimo has held various leadership positions in the healthcare industry in the past and is currently the CEO of Lima, a leading medical device company based in Italy. Lima has a long-standing history as an implant provider for the orthopedic industry, and together with his team, Massimo aims to restore movement to patients, as he believes movement is one of life's greatest joys. This seems like a great focus for a company, the gift of movement, and also a wonderful reason to ask Massimo to be a guest on our podcast today and talk about the role that personalization can play in this mission. Welcome, Massimo.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk about a topic that is very dear to me. As you just said, it's easy to be identified with a company that at the end, as a main aim, is to bring the emotion of motion to patients around the world. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. You actually started that at Lima fairly recently. Can you maybe tell us how you came to be the CEO of an Italian medical device company?
Yeah, interesting. I'm an engineer by training and I spend the majority of my work life in United States. So I was lucky enough to have a good overview of the entire musculoskeletal business. So I did orthopedics first. I moved into spine, working with one of the leading companies in the world, Nuvasive. And I think all of this experience that I had brought me at the end to Lima, given that being Italian, it was easy for me to be associated with the leading local Italian company in the orthopedic space. A company that is based on innovation, the know-how that we have on the technology side, on manufacturing side, is state of the art. The company was founded in late 1940s, so we're talking about years and years and years of experience. And luckily for me, given it's a global company, which of course is of interest for me, given that I had for many years a global role. Actually, most of my career always had the global roles. So I was lucky enough to be chosen to lead this organization with the plus of being in my mother country, Italy. So happy to be in Lima and grateful to the experience that I had in the United States that brought me here.
Yeah. So with a little homecoming in a number of ways.
Yes.
Massimo, if you would ask 5 customers of Lima to describe Lima, what would we hear them say?
Yeah, as I said before, like Lima is right now is a pretty good size to differentiate itself. One of the main things that the customer in the market appreciate is that given our size, a customer is still a customer, it's not a number. So a patient is still a patient, a customer is still a customer. We are lucky enough to bring not just technology, but also a service level and an attention to the level of support that we give to everybody in the field that make us interest. At the same time, it's easier for us to talk about what Lima is, a company that is laser focused on bringing technology forward. We are not playing yet just a number game. We are playing also a differentiation game, which make my life and the life of the many people that are around Lima very interesting.
So focus on a good customer relation and a passion for innovation. Okay, great to hear. So how do you apply this to personalization, and maybe how important is personalization for Lima?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. So like the connection between Lima and Materialize is that Lima is a market leader for sure in terms of know-how around 3D printing. You know very well that Lima's been maybe the first, if not the first of second, let's say, company in the world to start to laser sinter in titanium. The machine that you guys have also in your manufacturing implant got designed many, many years ago between Lima and leading market supplier for 3D printing. So personalization and the customization is in the DNA of the company. At the end, the idea of laser sintering came because there was this goal, this aim to mimic the human bone structure. So that one was the first impulse that brought the creation of this technology. You combine this with the ability, and as you said before, this DNA of the organization to bring back motion and to restore, let's say, a high quality of life with the patient. I think that creating implant that matches specifically the bone void that is created by the specific disease is, let's say, the ultimate goal and the ultimate aim that we have to restore the anatomy of the patient. So personalization and think about patient matching implant has become very natural for this organization, given that the entire thesis around laser sintering was to mimic again bone morphology.
And maybe can you give one or two examples of applications or products where you have strong focus on personalization that you think are, say, noteworthy or that you're proud of at Lima?
Yeah, I think that we can divide it twofold right now. I think it's going to be threefold in the future. So you have, let's say, universe of patient, let's say, cancer patient that need to grow to a very, let's say, severe bone resection. So I have this patient where the doctor don't have access to off-the-shelf implant that can replicate and can actually recreate bone loss that you have because of the very deep resection. So we have a team that focus themselves on helping patients with this such a big bone loss to regain, let's say, some kind of normal quality of life. So you have this first universe of patient, the second universe of patient that going through revisions. So again, a failed implant, a bone loss that is so severe that off-the-shelf implant cannot support the doctor to make let's say, the best procedure for the patient. So then we intervene with this kind of product. And in the future, we are working to start to address even, let's say, less severe situations to make this personalization, let's say, easier to access to the doctor, to the patient, even for, let's say, cases where, yes, you could adapt off the chest implant, but again, I use the word adapt. Our goal at the end of the day is actually match the bone loss. And look, there is a main example that I'm proud of. Actually, we had a celebration a few months ago with the anniversary of the manufacturing site where everything around Lima Trabecular Titanium started. And we had a patient talking and was actually a very severe pelvic reconstruction where we match different technologies. So we had on one hand our product working to restore, let's say, the bony defect and the ability to connect all of this with a pedicle screw system from another company. So you see a patient that was bound to be in a wheelchair, they actually, because of the combination of technology, we're able to regain some kind of functionality. So at the end, this situation, what's happening in the OR is where all of this technology comes alive.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the examples. It's interesting that you describe that the ones that you're tackling today are still the very high-end, complex use cases, and that you have the intention to also move that into the less complex patients. We actually did a survey not that long ago asking where people saw personalization grow into and whether it would become more common, which was apparently the general belief of the audience that we inquired. How do you, looking forward, see the relationship between personalization and the sustainability of healthcare?
Yeah, that one actually at the end you use the right word. I think that there is other companies that even a few years ago went through this path. I think that they are not gaining enough traction because, as you said, the pricing is still much higher than an off-the-shelf implant. So now you have two competing technology. On one hand, two competing microfactor that are dumping, let's say, the ability to full personalization. One, as I said before, is pricing, and second, now you compete with robotic application that, in theory, that can increase the outcome of procedure, which is the same thesis that you have when a personalized implant. So I think that how you're gonna win, for me, you're gonna win if you can manufacture and deliver a product that is personalized at a price that is competitive, because again, the study and the effort that you need to make in order to show that you improve outcome with the personalization is not sustainable for, let's say, for any company right now. So be price competitive, and B, I think really focus on this niche, this market segment where you are borderline between a straight, let's say, procedure and something that is a little bit more difficult. But it's interesting to me to see the dynamic today. If you think about 10 years ago, start to invest on personalization, boom, there was a very high, let's say, growth of all of this organization that start to fade away, because at the end, if you demand a premium, you need to clearly show that there is a premium also an outcome.
You talk about manufacturing at a competitive price, which of course, if there's it's a unique device, is definitely not straightforward as compared to the high volumes of standard implants. And that's one of the topics throughout also our podcast series is around the scalability of personalization. According to you, what is actually needed to make personalized approaches more scalable or more competitive in terms of costs as compared to a more standard alternative?
Yeah, this is a good question. So we already testing the water for that. I think that we have already a foundation, which is a point of care inside a hospital. We have a point of care inside HSS. So let's say, so we have the infrastructure. Now, in order to support the thesis that the model is financially viable, is going to be what I said before, figure it out, and how to increase, let's say, the market that you can address with this market segment of cases that are in borderline. So I think that the point of care is the way to, in theory, to diminish the cost. But we need to demonstrate the thesis when we're going to have a throughput and a turnaround of device that is going to be, let's say, large enough to see if the investment is going to pay off. But my gut feeling is really validate the ability to manufacture inside in a hospital.
Very interesting perspective is that you believe that that would drive down cost. What would be the main drivers then to be cheaper when you manufacture at the point of care versus at a medical device company side? Because you have maybe less economies of scale to leverage somehow?
Yeah, but at the same time, yes. This is why I said we need to see the volume, because yes, the amount of people that you use is much less, the space that you use is much smaller. So you have already some saving because, like, let's call it the box. The box is very confined. B, you don't have to, you save all of the cost of the back and forth cost from point A to point B. So everything is the point of care. Now, the proof is in the pudding. We need to figure it out now. Is the volume that you can have at specifically point of care with the investment made, if the math is working to make it sustainable? This is why, let's say, the thesis that we have is that you have, let's say, this box, very confined box, where you make like two specific investment with few people that are ready to manufacture. Now we need to see the throughput that you can bring to the site. If you can do that, I think that is sustainable. Of course, if not, the thesis is not going to support itself.
You are referring to the collaboration that you have with the Hospital of Special Surgery,
Yes.
where you have the on-site location, which is indeed, I think, one of the things that we, and I guess everybody in the industry has noticed to see, okay, it's an interesting experiment. I always also saw this as a way to collaborate with the surgeons at the HSS and maybe more also in terms of some R&D effort. Was that also important, or is it really as a kind of a template and an experiment for more the scalability?
No, I think that it's more a template on scalability and
Okay.
on creating solutions that are fully personalized. Because if you think about if the thesis work, this is the ultimate, let's say, case to show feasibility of a model. Because in theory, you can be a surgeon that see a patient, does spend 3 minutes to walk to another room, sit with an engineer,
Yeah.
design the plan, come back, and after a couple of weeks, you have everything there.
Okay, no, that's very interesting to hear from you.
The fact that you refer to the engineer on site, so it's not only point of care manufacturing, as in 3D printers in the hospital, but it's also all engineering teams and infrastructure around that to make that happen, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, because they do other stuff, but yes, you have a full support staff. You can 3D print the plastic, so you can do PSIs of some sort. I think that is you can do bond models, especially when you start to go through most difficult cases. I think the surgeon likes to see 3D printed the replication of the anatomy. So there's a service that you give.
We mostly have been talking about patient-specific implants so far, and indeed the expertise that Lima has in metal 3D printing is quite astonishing. Do you also have some patient-specific surgical guides to help in correct positioning of the implants? Can you explain also a little bit there? How do you see the importance of that for Lima?
Yeah, right now I think that is a poor man navigation. At the end, the PSI is related to a plan where we are partnering right now together. Is is the easiest way right now to deliver some kind of guidance inside the OR. So for us to the leap from 3D printing to plastic 3D printing has been pretty easy. Also for us, compare for instance a company like Materialize, where I see a lot of know-how on the software side, instrumentation devices is what we do every day. So I think that this has been not difficult, let's say, to go from metal to plastic.
It's interesting that you mentioned software as well. Actually, we see a lot of companies now invest more in software platforms as well to support personalized devices and services. How do you think that these software platforms will contribute to the scaling of personalization?
Yeah, at the end, you have on the hardware side, let's say on the metal side, over time, you start to see a less and less differentiation in terms of functions. I think that there is a lot of similarities between the system out there. Like everything in our world, I think that if a planning system is the utilization of a software, optimize and speed up everything related to a diagnosis and everything related to the type of implant that the patient needs, at the end, that one is the main link between the patient, the surgeon, and the manufacturer. Is going to be the software solution. So the more accurate is the software solution, the more accurate is the planning, the segmentation that you do, the faster and the better is going to be the outcome. Doesn't surprise me. Also, there is an expectation that in the future the entire game is going to be a data game. So. So look, it's a fun part right now to be in the space, because if you see, you're doing a real transition from what this was before. So let's say for real focus on metal to really start to play on another game where you combine software technology with the hardware technology to help surgeon to have a better outcome in the OR.
Can you share with us some examples of what Lima is doing as part of this transition?
Yeah, so we already a few years that we're investing in the space. So with some specific technology that we're developing in-house. Actually, let's say on the planning side, right now we are laser focused on developing a relationship with you guys, and where we are switching is literally to owning the OR with a navigation system that is going to be connected with the planning. So, given the size of our organization, it's difficult for us to do 10 different actions. When I was in Nuvasive, I had a much larger, let's say, budget amount of people to invest in different segments. For us, I think that being an implant manufacturer is important to own the OR. So right now we're focusing on all of the technologies that you can use in the OR and find a partner like you to work on all of the enabler, let's say, all of the technology that can enable you to be successful inside the OR.
That we see that reality as well. And yeah, we cannot, not every company can cover the entire space just with the limited capabilities they have. That probably leads, at least today, to the reality that physicians are maybe using multiple software platforms to get the job done with the patients. Do you consider that to be problematic for them?
Yeah, this is a great question. So my hope and my bet, and this is why we're betting also on Materialize, is that over time, the entire planning, let's say, piece, for instance, just to use it as example, is going to become a more, let's say, vanilla and a staple in the OR. And as you saw in other technology, I think standardization is going to be very important. I don't think that moving forward, a surgeon is going to be happy to move from one system to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope and I bet on the fact that a more, let's say, that there's going to be, let's say, a system or two systems that are going to emerge to become more the standard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the entire conversation is going to be always on the ownership of the data. So I think that who wants to become the leader also needs to give up on something that is going to be the data. Otherwise, you're forced to have companies to have closed system.
The infrastructure might be standardized, but the data should be owned by the different companies, and you can still create your own IP and develop, differentiate basically. Okay,
that's clear, and it would be a bit different from how we see consumer platforms evolve, where like the Amazon and Google of this world own the platform, but they also own the data on the platform, and you envisage clearly that that's different in healthcare.
Yeah, but the challenge that you have is that you need to think about the conversation that we're having today. If I want to use Materialize and I want to also provide personalized surgery, I need to have your data of the things that I plan with Materialize. Otherwise, how can I provide the care? Also about Amazon and others, I don't think that they own 100% the data, because also they help the vendors to do some specific analytics. So Google has Google Analytics too.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they own the data, but you have access to your own data.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very fine line about where we are. But I told you about a company like you. I think yes, data is a value, but if you don't give value to your specific user, it's going to be difficult to extract even more value.
One of the bigger trends that we're seeing impact our business over the past years, I would say, is the rise of the medical device regulation, MDR. How do you see that impacting personalized medical devices, and do you consider it to be a threat or more an opportunity for your business?
No, I think that now I want to see this more on macro level. I think that MDR is going to be a challenging for all of the countries that is going to apply MDR, so mostly to Europe. As a healthcare economic is a reality, so MDR, it creates a level of complexity to clear anything new, which may create a barrier to entry, but not a barrier to entry to market to companies. I think it's going to create a barrier to entry for surgeon and patient to have the latest and greatest technology. I think that over time, if I have my crystal ball, we may see a decrease of the quality of healthcare in Europe compared to other countries around the world. So, as everything in life, I wouldn't be surprised if right now we're investing millions and millions of euros to comply to MDR, and one day the legislator is going to realize that maybe they went too far, which is already happening. You read, I'm sure, that Switzerland is start to consider the utilization also of 510K. We start to see what Great Britain is going to do. It's pretty clear that I think that many legislators are coming to the realization that MDR is too costly for companies to support, let's say, innovation in Europe. So for me, I don't see it as a threat or opportunity for anybody. I see a threat for access of technology for patient and surgeon.
Yeah. And there used to be a time for innovations you would first go to Europe because that was the easier, and then you would go to the US. I think, maybe it's flipped too far the other side now. I think we'll see. Hopefully not. As we're on the topic of innovation, we do see that the rate of technology innovation in healthcare is increasing spectacularly if you just look at the past 10 years. Looking ahead, are there any specific innovations that you are thinking about that will help create sustainable advantage in relation to personalization?
At the end, it's going to be what we said before: is economic sustainability of the model and speed. I think that if you need to can find the right balance between how fast you manufacture the solution for the surgeon, and you can match this with competitive price. If you think about even logically why you should not have a personalized implant.
If we think about personalization in a broader sense, we briefly touched upon robotics. One of the things you now see more and more is augmented reality as potentially an alternative technology for surgical guides or for robotics to execute a planning. Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
That one, I think that, okay, so we need, again, I think I give you a twofold answer. If you think about healthcare economic, yes, I think that I don't know if how sustainable is going to be the robotic platform as they are today, because the capital is very capital intensive. So I'm very curious to see how everything is going to evolve. But remember, a robot doesn't give you a personalized surgery. At the end, the robot helps the surgeon to achieve a clear and a predefined surgical plan. Yes, so the surgical plan is kind of quote unquote personalized, but it's not personalized surgery. They're two different things. You may have the ultimate customization if you have a patient matching implant that is used through a navigation system of a robot. So you match an implant and a surgical plan. But the robot by itself is just a matching of surgical plan within the OR.
Yeah, it's definitely a different degree of personalization in between using these assisted tools versus having indeed a personalized implant. One of the other enabling technologies that we're seeing having a big impact is just artificial intelligence and any kind of machine learning that's impacting the data processing. You talked about speed as a very important differentiator to be able to drive personalization also forward. How do you see the relation between the role of AI and speed as a company?
Yeah.
Do you make that link?
Yeah, you are like the master on that. At the end, the utilization of AI to segment and start to create the ability to give surgeons, let's say, a predefined plan is foundational for the success and the speed of every pending any device we manufacture in the future. If the system is intelligent enough to start to diminish the amount of reiteration you need to go through an implant, of course, you're going to have speed. So machine learning, I think that is foundational for the ability to support what we are talking about today.
I don't want to trigger people with ideas here, but you see in the general consumer world, you see this anti-AI movement also appearing now just because of the speed, the rate of innovation that's happening there. Do you think that in healthcare, we should be concerned about that? Will the AI replace the physician or become a threat at one point in time?
No, that one, I think that one is a different. It's apple and oranges, because at the end, like AI, we don't have a self-working robot that does procedure by itself. I think that we are like tens and tens of years away from anything like that. So at the end, in AI, it's positive actually in our industry, because if you think about it, just the tools that can read much quicker images. You can train an AI model to identify specific cancer marker that maybe you can miss with the naked eyes. Can help start to give a surgeon specific diagnosis that the surgeon can start to review and decide if it makes sense or not. I think that AI in healthcare, I believe, for what I think, for my vantage point, is a much more value and a different value than you can see of AI for standard consumer, where literally, yes, you can be fooled as a person from an AI. But
I'm glad that you're on my side, that we probably shouldn't start the anti-movement at this point in time and that we see more advantages in the operational side of things.
for us, it's different. I think that at the end, who performed the surgery is always going to be a doctor. So the ultimate decision maker is pretty clear. I think that AI is scary right now because people start to identify the ultimate decision maker being a computer, which is not the case for us.
And likely maybe not even in 10 years. Let's see where that goes. Looking 10 years into the future, if it's not the AI taking over the decision-making powers of the surgeon yet, if you would project yourself in 10 years and we would be sitting here again in the next podcast episode, what are some of the major achievements that you hope you will be able to share with us in 10 years?
Yeah, I think that everybody's going to plan. I think that I hope that everybody's going to have patient-specific implant and everybody's going to be to navigate successfully and very precisely in the OR. At the end, everything that we do is just to increase the outcome. So I hope that the combination of technology and hardware in a sustainable way is going to make sure that let's say, if you see the medium outcome that you're going to have from surgeon is going to keep increasing, especially in pathology, like knee replacement, we still see a lot of, let's say, discrepancy between outcomes. So I think that if I projecting myself 10 years from now, I wish that we're going to have a pretty standardized outcome independently by where you go to get operated in.
Yeah, I think that's a nice goal and that we're all very hopeful for and working hard on every day. Thanks so much for joining us, Massimo. I learned a lot of things. I think it was a really interesting episode. There are maybe 3 key takeaways for myself, things that I'll probably remember for a longer time. I think, first of all, for personalization to become sustainable, we need to make sure we can manufacture it at a competitive price, but also focus on segments where a standard device is starting to have its limitations in terms of, the impact on patient outcomes. The second thing is the way that Lima is playing a pioneering role with manufacturing at point of care and really trying out if this is also a way to make personalization more scalable. And we're very eager to see to what conclusions you will come, because I think everybody in industry will be happy to learn how that's going. And then lastly, I would say a little discussion we had on the software platform where we probably need some kind of standardization and to not overwhelm our physicians as well. And that if we can find a way to do that in such a way that each company still has access to its own data and can use that for its innovation and to keep differentiating, that would be a win-win for everybody.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen 10 years from now.
All of us, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we very much appreciate you sharing your insights with us on 3D Players podcast, where we explore trends, insights, and innovations in personalized and sustainable healthcare. We are your hosts, Sebastian de Boot and Pieter Slagmolen. Thank you a lot for listening and join us in the next edition.